Parkinson's. Live an exceptional life. I'm your host, Chris Custenbotter, and I've been living with Parkinson's for the past 13 years. The mission of this podcast is to help as many people live a great quality of life with Parkinson's as possible. Today's topic is the Momentum Program, a life-changing program for people living with Parkinson's and other neurological disorders. Now, before we start, I just have a brief disclaimer that I wanted to go over, and that is that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat Parkinson's disease. Please follow the treatment plan prescribed by your physician, and this podcast is based on my own personal experiences and is for informational purposes only. Now, do you or a family member wish there was a program to help you maintain or improve your Parkinson's symptoms while participating with others facing similar challenges? Then this podcast is for you. I want to start off with a little story about the program that we're going to be talking about. In 2018, I wasn't working because of my Parkinson's symptoms, both my motor and non-motor symptoms didn't allow me to perform up to the expectations of the job that I had. I worked in oral care sales. I was a territory manager and did a lot of presentations and worked conventions and did a lot of driving. And so my Parkinson's symptoms didn't allow me to continue doing what I was doing. But I still knew the importance of exercise, and I would go to the Jewish Community Center in York, PA every day and exercise. And typically I did it alone. And I would do things like lap swimming, lifting weights, different aerobic exercises, whether it was on machines or walking. And while that was great, I also took a spin class twice a week, which helped me interact with other people as well. But while I always kept a positive attitude, but I still felt a sense of loss that I didn't feel like I was being able to contribute like I used to. And it was a sense that I didn't feel like I was contributing to my family or contributing to my community. So then in 2018, I heard about a program that the JCC was starting called the Momentum Program. And it was for people with Parkinson's and other neurological diseases. And I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to exercise with people that are going through similar challenges. So I signed up and registered for the program. And my expectations at the time were that it was mainly going to be an exercise program. I was going to get together a couple of times a week with people with Parkinson's, and we were going to go through some exercise programs. And I thought it was a great opportunity to learn some new techniques and some new exercises. But it turned out to be a lot more than that. It grew into something that I never expected. And it was actually a transformational program from my point of view. And it really helped transform my life. So what I thought was just going to be an exercise program turned into so much more. I've developed lasting friendships through the program, and we do get together. We do a lot of things socially. We have breakfasts, lunches, we do social activities, and there's a lot more that goes with it. But I think one of the key things that it did is it gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a sense of getting out of bed and interacting with other people that were going through similar challenges, but it also gave me the chance to help other people. And whether they were struggling, whether you cheered them on, or whether there was a skill that you were good at, you could help them and show them some techniques that you use to help them in their journey as well. So one of the other things that I wanted to point out is that not only has the Momentum Program helped me and the participants, but I think it's also helped the instructors as well. That we have a great group of instructors that are knowledgeable both in Parkinson's and other neurological disorders, but they also care about the people that are part of the program. And I'm forever grateful for being a part of the program and the instructors that help guide us. And I'd like to introduce you to the two people that were co-developers of the program, Jen Winter and Susanna Gillespie. Jen is the fitness director at the York, PA Jewish Community Center. She's also a personal trainer, ACE certified. Is that right, Jen?
That's right.
And her areas of expertise are small group training, athletic movement, health and wellness, and circuit training. And then I have Susanna Gillespie, who's the group fitness manager, group fitness instructor, and personal trainer. She's NETA certified personal trainer. And then her areas of expertise are special populations, rehabilitation, and nutrition. And I can personally attest to the expertise and knowledge and caring that both of these fine individuals have. So welcome, and let's get started. Do you want to introduce yourselves? We have Jen.
Hello, I'm Jen, and Yes, I'm the fitness director at the York JCC. I absolutely love working with the Momentum participants. It's not only fulfilling from day to day, but I absolutely love to see the changes in everyone's life between the numbers and everything, the assessments that we do with them, and then also the psychological and social changes. Just what this program does to pretty much open up the participants to being social and understanding that they can be part of a program with like people.
Okay. Susanna.
Hi, I'm Susanna. I'm the Wellness and Group Fitness Manager. And like Jen said, I think the program has really evolved in such amazing ways. Some of the most amazing stories that I think that we have bridge so far beyond just the fitness aspect of what we see in everybody every single day. It's really become such a community within a community. People go beyond caring in such amazing ways where we're always looking out for each other and really helping each other grow, motivating, and really trying to find what's best for each other physically, emotionally, and mentally. So it's been an amazing process and one that we look forward to seeing where we've gone from the last 5 years and where we take this in the next 5 and beyond.
Great. Thank you. Let's learn a little bit more about the program now. Well, being a participant in Momentum myself, I know that it started in 2018. We just celebrated the 5th-year anniversary of Momentum. It was a great occasion. But in terms of the Momentum program, how did it evolve and what type of training did you both go through in order to really get the program off the ground?
Initially, when the program started in 2018, we collaborated with WellSpan, which is just a large medical facility in the York area that covers all sorts of medical treatments. They had started the program in their facility working with physical therapists, and this was just movement for people with Parkinson's. When we transferred it to the JCC, we had the vision to work with more people than just participants who had Parkinson's, but we did, that is how we started. Starting with people who just had Parkinson's, transferring participants from WellSpan to the York JCC, and then trying to grow the program from there.
And from there, we chose to go to Power Training, which is Parkinson's Wellness Recovery, which is a scientifically and medically backed movement-based program to learn the basic skills that we wanted to incorporate into our program. From there, we came back and we sat down, and many, many days we spent designing the program from the ground up and how we wanted to take what WellSpan had started. We had visited with their participants and saw what they were doing, and we knew how many more elements that we wanted to take and take it up to the next level because we had seen what the power gyms had been doing with creating additional social programming options and really taking it to the next level. So we sat there in our cafe area and made plans, and even from those plans, just seeing how our participants, what their needs were, we added elements as we were able to grow the program. Even obviously with 2020, we had to take a lot of steps back and pivot. And then when we came back really small. And then we were able to just, I think we'd all agree, we kind of exploded as everybody came back and we were able to, we're up to almost 200 participants at this point, and we keep adding more and more individuals each month.
Wow, 200. How many did you start with when the program first started?
It was about 20 participants when the program first started. Yeah. Very small classes compared to now.
And how did people find the program? You started with 20, now 200. Do you have a marketing program, or was it just word of mouth? Was there advertising on TV or print, or just on the JCC website?
We weren't on the JCC website even at that point. It was a few doctors who were spreading the word, physical therapists, and then word of mouth. We have an internal marketing program, but that's about all that it was in print at that point.
The instructors in the program, do they have to have any specialized training in order to lead the classes, or is it a regular personal trainer certification?
We start the trainers with, most of them have the Power Moves certification. That is not necessarily a requirement at this point. We take into account every certifications from personal training to yoga certifications to movement, athletic training. We take everything into consideration when we welcome a new coach into the program, so to speak, but they are all well-rounded in their training.
And I think overall, we're looking for the right fit for the coach. I think we're looking for people that are really going to love and care for the participants the way that we do and really take it very seriously, because we have a lot of things to take into consideration when we're looking at all the participants. There's a lot of safety considerations. Some of our classes, maybe only 15 people, some of our classes are up into the 30s. And so we're really looking and having to manage a lot of different abilities at the same time.
Now, I know when I started back in 2018, it was you pretty much signed up and you were in the class. Now, I know today they have an intake program where you sit down and do interviews and do some skills assessment. Can you talk a little bit more about the intake program for people to get into the program?
Initially, we have, yes, an intake for momentum, and that is 3 different movement assessments, 2 flexibility assessments, as well as asking how the participants feel they're doing in certain areas. We also incorporate a medical history, just understanding injuries or restrictions of the participants. And then we also like to know what their hobbies were or currently are. We really want to plug the participants into what they used to love doing, understanding that they still can do these things, and how can we support their hobbies and social group, so to speak, that they would like to still be a part of right now.
One of the biggest challenges with people with Parkinson's disease is a loss of self-efficacy, the feeling that they have the tools and the ability to challenge themselves and to meet their goals and to reduce their barriers. So I think the ability to talk about their hobbies, because a lot of people have given up on their hobbies because they feel like they just can't do it anymore, either because of manual dexterity or the depression that goes along with it or the lack of energy. So being able to connect people with either what they used to love doing or finding new abilities that they didn't really know that they had a love for is such an important component, because when they feel that they can do things, that unlocks so many new opportunities and so many more feelings of capacity, and it really makes them feel really good. It reduces that stress and it really creates a new life for them.
I know at the beginning there wasn't a lot of assessment. You know, when people sign up for a new program, it's always, am I going to get results with this? And some people drop out because they're not getting the results, or they don't think they're getting the results, or they don't necessarily see the results. But as the program's progressed, I've noticed you've implemented quarterly measurements where you're looking at backward walking, standing from a chair and walking, stretching and flexibility. So based on those measurements, have you seen significant improvements in people in the class based on where they started at baseline?
Yes, this is really impressive, and we are so proud of the participants. Let me just say, a lot of it has to do with the amount of effort each one of them puts into class. Some of them feel like they're not doing as much as they could in class, or they could be doing a little more. But what we're seeing across the board is everybody pushing themselves right to that limit where they don't know if they can push anymore. And that's almost a breaking point of sorts. But it's good in a sense because it allows the participants to take what they can do to the right at the edge of where they can't do anymore. And that's when change is being seen. So what we saw from the April assessments to the October assessments was 165% change in movement, which means that the backwards walking got a little quicker, the stand up and go was quicker. So that is the level of change, 165% that we saw in these last assessments. And that's because of the effort and the time that each one of the participants puts in. And then it's in the coaches to really take them to that level of where they can't give any more, so to speak, but they're working so hard.
And it's kind of amazing. We talk about Parkinson's has a progression, and the progression is that it is making people less flexible. It's slowing down movement. It's making greater challenges with gait. And so one of the things that we were talking to the participants this week about is if your numbers are getting worse because you're not participating, that's the progression of the disease at its normal rate. So everybody's results for their assessments are going to be a little bit different. So when we're averaging things out, a person might have a little bit better, and not everyone's going to progress at the same rate. But even if their baseline was 0 for their assessment, for their reassessment scores, that's still a good thing, because if they were doing nothing, those numbers are going to get worse. So a 0% improvement is actually a really great improvement because we're stopping that progression from happening. So even anything that's in the positive section, working towards that 165% is actually really amazing. We're reversing their progression. So we're so incredibly excited for that.
I know you've had some experience with where people have come and then there's been a lapse, and it could be 3 or 4 months for some reason. It could be they were taking care of somebody else, or maybe they just were down on themselves and didn't want to come to class, but then they come back to class. Do you notice significant differences from where they were before they left the program and then where they are when they come back?
That's an interesting question. Yes, we've definitely seen a change. I would say we more so see, instead of the numbers, it's psychological. So getting someone back into a class after they've taken some time out is more of a welcoming back of sorts. How have you been? What have you been doing? It's that social aspect and that emotional energy mentally that we're trying to just redirect and pull the positivity out of them.
And I think it takes a lot for them to come back. It's kind of scary because, they've been away for a while. They know they're going to face questions from other participants. Where have you been? So it's a really big leap of faith for them to come back. So we try to make it as positive as possible. I think they know in themselves that they've regressed. So it's a really big homecoming for them to come back to us, and we welcome them wherever they are. And then it's amazing to see in just a few short weeks that sparkle comes back to them. We'll see it in their faces when they return. You kind of see their eyes are a little downtrodden. There's no pep in their step like they used to. And then within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden that shine in their eyes comes back. They feel good about themselves. Their energy is coming back. So it's so apparent, and it's so amazing to see. And it doesn't take long for that to happen.
I mentioned earlier that momentum's become more than an exercise program, and that we've all become like friends and family. And it's really become a great social time as well, because a lot of times the participants will come to class a half an hour early, and there's a bench outside the room where we have the classes, and we'll just sit and talk. And one of the interesting things was there was several people that were, when they were new, they said they thought they would come once, and they were very nervous because they didn't feel like they were athletic and they weren't sure they could do the moves. So they thought, well, I'll come to 1 or 2 classes, and that's probably all I'm going to come to. And now they're regular participants for the last 2 years, and they love it, and they've seen great strides. So based on that, in terms of the social nature of that, do you have any success stories that you could share with maybe that you've seen people that were really apprehensive about starting the program, but then now they've really blossomed into a person living a great quality of life?
Yes, definitely. And we really see a change in every one of the participants. But one, for instance, came in, started, she was very apprehensive about the classes, the movements, of course. And just like you said, thinking, oh, I'll see where this starts and how long I'm going to be a part of it. But something takes over in the social aspect that participants feel accepted and they feel at home sense, because they walk in and they see people who are going through similar issues, so to speak. I mean, this could be in everyday life. This could be in just driving and getting out of the car. They see each other walking into the building. There's side conversations that are had, and just asking how they're doing. The social aspect of the group, I think, keeps people coming back. And then the hard work that they have to do in the class, it's something that they can get through because of almost the team that has been created.
And I think it starts the moment they walk into our facility. We have a front desk when they walk in the building, and everybody's known by their first name. So as soon as they walk in the building, they're greeted with a wave and a smile from our CET team. And every time they walk down the hall, everybody knows who they are, and they're seeing the differences right when they're walking in. It's like a cheerleading team every time they walk down the hall. And it's amazing just how much that pumps people up, I think, as they're walking down. And then they have their crew in the program. They have all of us. We're checking in with them. They get text messages from us. They know that they can call us. They know they can sit down and have a cup of coffee with us when the days are hard or when the days are good. And they always know they have somebody that they can turn to. And it's amazing that I think on some levels, I don't know that we take it for granted, but I think that we're so used to that being our norm now and how wonderful that is. Over the summer, I had a family friend who contacted me saying that they had a family friend out in the Midwest who they were even considering taking their life. They had Parkinson's and they felt so alone because they had nothing. They didn't know who they could contact. And I realized in that moment just what we had when we know that our group, our Momentum crew at any moment in the day has 20, 30, 40, 150 people that they can lean on whenever they need support. And I think that's one of the most amazing parts of our program.
Now, within each class, you have a range of abilities. Some people come in and they have canes and walkers, and then you have other people that are mobile, very mobile. So how do you structure a class to be able to incorporate, and how do you see the people that are mobile helping the other people in the class that may have some difficulties with either maybe getting down on a mat or just going through an exercise where they need some type of walking?
This goes back to, well, it really starts with how we pick our coaches, so to speak. It has to be somebody who can multitask, who can see in a group of 30 participants exactly what everyone needs and where they need to go. Another thing that helps is our volunteers. So our volunteers come in, and if the coach is teaching the class, the volunteers are going out and they're going to help maybe a participant that needs a little extra help with movement. Do they need a chair? So we're always taking into account the equipment that we need to have in the class. Are people going to be standing? Will some be seated? And that's okay as well. And so there's a lot of multitasking happening in the classes. What we saw, so after COVID, we brought every level together into one class. What was great to see is that everyone was helping each other. It was the lower functioning were inspired by the people who had more movement, and the people who could move around the class a little easier were just helping everybody else in the class. So we just saw this level of teamwork and this just the social anxieties and just things that can happen in class that maybe might halt people. They were just working harder and everyone was helping everyone.
And I think it also really helps everybody else see that you can do something at every single level. Even if you're sitting down, you can be doing foot movements and arm movements. You can be standing up and do the same thing in just a different manner. Even in personal training, we're taught how to do progressions and regressions. So we take that and we transpose that into what we're doing in class. And even if you're able to be standing up, it's always good to try the seated version. So everybody should always be working at different levels and trying the different options. So yeah, having the mixed levels, I think, has been really great because it really helps everybody to support one another.
And one of the things I learned as a participant, to both your points about people that are more mobile helping other people out, a lot of times people will say, well, I can't do that. And I think everybody in the class rallies around and says, you can do it. We just have to break it down into smaller chunks and be able to do what you can do. And it's amazing to watch their face light up when they think that they can't do something. And then all of a sudden, after several weeks, they're able to do it. And it just gives them a sense of satisfaction, but everybody in the class cheers them on too, because it's great to see how people progress and lead a great quality of life, where before they were maybe limiting themselves because they had the I can't do this, when everybody else is there. And it's nice to see people that are going through the same struggles be able to overcome and cheer everybody else on. Another area I wanted to explore is Parkinson's is a pretty complex, multi-dimensional disease. There's the motor symptoms, which everybody recognizes: the tremor, the stoop posture, the slowness of movement, the walking issues. There's also the non-motor symptoms. Big ones is insomnia. If you talk to people in the class, they're burly and then they get tired. They might have excessive daytime sleepiness. But another one is cognitive function. And that's one thing that I think a lot of programs don't really consider. So when you're designing a class, I know we do, I guess they call it dual task exercises, where you're doing a task, but you're also doing a cognitive exercise at the same time, whether it's counting backwards or spelling or saying the months backwards. So how do you approach designing your particular class based on trying to incorporate a couple of those things like cognitive function and exercise?
I think it really depends on who is in the class on that given day and how they're feeling. We tend to see a rhythm of who's coming to which class based on just when they're feeling the best. So I know my Thursday morning class is going to typically have different people than the Monday afternoon class. So I kind of know who my participants are and generally speaking what their struggles or their strengths are. So depending on that day and who I've got in class, I know what I need to focus on, and I'll kind of focus my cognitive skills on that. And then also, and I touched on this in my previous podcast with Chris, I love to ask the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how you're feeling. And I like to ask another question at the start of class, how quickly people respond and their how in depth their response is helps to drive what I know I need to work on in class. So all those little things at the start of class really help me to determine pretty quickly where we need to take the cognitive level of class and the motor skills level of the class.
And as an instructor, we do realize what we're asking of you when I'll call them multifunction movements. When we ask you to do those, it's because it's not just body movements, it's your brain working while you're doing the movements. So sometimes I'll ask participants to, as they're lifting their leg and doing a strength exercise with their arms, I'll ask them to say everything that they see while they're walking in the building. So that has them thinking about what they see when they first walk in, as they walk down the hallway. I even ask them to do that for when they're walking in their house, what they see from the car to their bedroom. It just enables them to really get their brains moving while they're moving their bodies. And I think that that's really important. I definitely see the faces as I look around of people like, what are you asking us to do? But that I think at the end, they really realize how much their brain is just firing and then their bodies are moving and they're accomplishing something.
I notice that's one of the big struggles I have, even doing personal training, is if you ask me to do multi-step process. I used to have no problem doing it. Now I have to walk through it maybe once or twice to get it down, and I still might screw it up. So that's one of the, I guess, frustrations that you don't necessarily think about when you have a degenerative disease, but it's something that you can overcome. It's just you have to work at it and break it down into small pieces. In fact, I just had a conversation the other day with one of my friends in the class, and he said that a lot of the things he used to take for granted, he really appreciates now, that and momentum's really helped him be able to continue to do those things. But he said before, I used to take it for granted that I could play the piano or play the drums, and now because he comes to class and he participates, he's able to do those things. So it's interesting how that works. The Momentum program is a 5-day-a-week program, and each day is a little bit different. Each instructor's different. But would you say, in terms of the holistically, in terms of the exercise program, it pretty much includes strength training, balance, aerobic exercise, and some of the other things that are important in Parkinson's? But you don't necessarily have to incorporate those all into one class, because you can do that over several classes. Is that correct?
Correct. The idea is for the momentum classes that first and foremost, we want to do big open movements to make everyday movements easier. And that's it in its simplest form. Then with every instructor that we have, they add to their classes their specialties, so to speak. So we have yoga specialties, we have athletic training specialties, even boxing specialties. So we incorporate all different types of movements with these big open movements to make everyday movements easier, getting in and out of the car, stepping over a curb, even reaching for that coffee cup that is high up on a shelf. So that's really in its simplest form what we want to do while incorporating all of the specialties like we talked about.
From your perspective as instructors and developers of the program, is there certain aspects of Parkinson's that you like to deal with, or that you've seen that maybe you didn't know a lot about, that really interests you now, so that you maybe incorporate that specific area into a class, or you just enjoy working with the participants and seeing their growth?
I think I really didn't understand going into it as much about the social aspect. I think we all knew it, but until we saw it in action, we didn't realize just how isolating it truly was. Because I think being instructors and being in a gym facility, we're around people all day long. So we are constantly talking. We're constantly in a social environment. So it's sometimes beyond us to think that people are not in that environment to have that social support. So seeing that changeover has been a real eye opener. I think seeing the caregiver standpoint, again, we know it's stressful to be a caregiver for somebody who's going through a really challenging disease like Parkinson's, but to really get into addressing some of their needs has been really eye-opening. And then for me, really seeing some of the alternative therapies, it wasn't something I ever would have probably gotten into before. So that's been really kind of fun for me and really flexed a different side of my instructor brain that I wouldn't have gotten into beforehand.
As for me, being heavily into the assessments themselves and what everyone's numbers are, I get interested in the aspects of, well, pretty much everyone in the program that doesn't just have Parkinson's. So if we're talking about neuropathy, we're talking about dementia, and how that affects their assessments. If people only had Parkinson's and momentum, it would be a different story. But now we're having other participants that also have digestion issues, and some of those come with Parkinson's as well. And it's just interesting to me how that may affect their day-to-day activities and then also their assessments. So I think moving forward for me, I want to understand these other conditions that people have along with Parkinson's and just how we can continue to help the program.
The social aspect, I think, is really huge. Just did an article on social isolation. And one of the things I learned in there is one of the biggest predictors of disease progression is if you answer yes to the following question, are you lonely? People that answer yes to that question typically have a faster rate of decline. And that's one of the key benchmarks in determining how people decline. So I think one of the great benefits of the Momentum program is the social aspect. And one of the things that I know that you're starting to do beyond just the social interaction in class is we've done monthly social activities, and then you're looking at expanding into where we have groups where someone has this particular talent in an area, whether it be music, art, drawing, dancing. Can you go into a little more detail about how you're going to expand that to try to get more involvement for people to maybe expand their hobbies or work with others that have similar interests?
So in the last year, we've been expanding Momentum and adding social groups. We have taken a survey from the participants to see what social groups we were going to add. This incorporated art, hiking, rail bike, all sorts of things that we do for social groups. In the last couple months, we've been talking about expanding where the participants are actually going to decide what social groups we have in addition to the big group that we had put together monthly. This includes, like Chris said, music, art, even fly fishing practice, all sorts of things. And I think if they're led by the participants, I think that's a great thing to have. Then they all feel a part. They can choose what kind of get their groups together, so to speak. And these groups we don't anticipate to be as large as the classes, but people can find their specialties and just what they love to do.
In terms of the program, where do you see it going in the future? I mean, do you have a vision? Would you like to see it expanded to other facilities? How do you see it growing? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, right now we are developing a plan to expand Momentum where it's something that we can bring it into other facilities who would like to have it, even from our assessments to how they're tracked, support from us quarterly, monthly, however they might need that support. And so we are working diligently on the next year being able to expand Momentum and just actually offer it in other facilities if people would like that.
Now, have you ever thought, you're collecting all this information and data with assessments, have you ever thought about publishing, going to educational institution and publishing a paper on the program and the results that you've seen?
We actually already have done 2 articles through Community Rec, and we already have another one in the works that shares some of the different data we've collected. We're going to be partnering with University of Maryland for next year's symposium to share some of our passions with them for the next symposium. So we're excited for that. And we are more than happy to partner with an institution to share our data and really help whoever we can with what we found.
As co-developers, you think back 5 years ago to today. What are you most proud of in terms of the program? There's got to be certain things that you really feel good about in terms of where the program started and where it is now.
We work in a community center, and that's exactly what Momentum has become, a community within a community, just like Susanna had said before. I think it's the relationships for me. When I first started Momentum, it was a program that, yes, I wanted to help people with Parkinson's. At my core, I want to help people. That's what I do. But I never would have imagined that in 5 years, there's this group of people that I love to see every day. I come out of my office just to say hello, to see how their kids are, how a game went over the weekend. And I want to know every little detail about their lives. And so you have this huge group of Momentum, and it just feels like a family. And I would have never seen that coming 5 years ago.
I agree with everything Jen said. And then I think also like looking back to 2020 and how easy it would have been for that to have ended everything. There were times when we'd have these coffee hours on Zoom and there'd be like 3 of us. And when we came back from COVID and we started classes again, and there'd be like 2 people in class, and would people ever feel comfortable being back in a classroom again? Because that was really hard. We knew, we lost a lot of participants just because they didn't feel comfortable coming back. We know that a lot of them regressed. So to see that it not only came back, but it came back so much stronger, even though it took time. Being in a community center, it's hard because a lot of programs kind of come and go. I think in a lot of ways, we really have to push to make sure we have the space to do what we need to do, to make sure that we can grow the way we need to grow. It's so important for what we do. To see that it's held on, to see that it's done so much better than we could have ever thought possible, to see how much it's impacted people's lives. And like Jen said, to get the messages and to become part of people's lives, that's been such like an amazing part of the program that we didn't, I think, ever see coming in the way it did.
Program's funded through grants. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what can people do or to help keep the program going? Because I know a lot of times grants have an end date, but is there ways that people can help to make this great program continue?
Yes, in fact. So what we've seen, and this just naturally happened in the past couple months, is people are making private donations, and it doesn't matter the size. Like any amount of donation, we put towards the program. We have a budget for the program. We know exactly what we need to run the shell of a program or everything into its social groups, and what we can even offer to participants that if they qualify for, say, fine motor training, reaction training, which is safety, speed, and movement, and then also the higher functioning levels, which is extreme training, getting them that intense exercise that they really need. So any donations to the program are going to go to help fund those things, so that we don't just have to have the shell of the program, but we can actually expand it into the social groups and the much needed extra training.
I know one of the things that the program has done is it's really expanded into other things that participants can do. That Momentum Extreme class based on people's abilities. You have a fine motor skills training. You do a cognition class. And then you also have the Normatech and ice therapy as part of the program too. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
So the reaction training and the extreme training kind of came from we use the backwards walking test because the backwards walking test tells us a lot. It tells a lot about confidence, speed and movement, and mobility. So we use the backwards walking test to assess the participants, and then they can funnel into whether they qualify for reaction training or the extreme training. The fine motor training, we do very simple fine motor skills test, and we do that before and after the class, and we've seen changes, and that's what continues these classes, and that we see the changes in the participant from the start of these special programs to the end. As far as Normatec, we have compression therapy. So this just makes the program well-rounded. Compression therapy is going to help with recovery. You can choose different zones such as your legs, hips, or shoulders. And because with Parkinson's and movement disorders, you're going to be affected. Your gait's going to be affected. You're going to have tight tendons and muscles. And so the recovery side to it is very important as well.
Yeah, talking about the Normatec, that was one of the articles that we wrote for Community Rec, and we did a study that showed how Normatec on the legs really improved people's walking abilities after individual sessions. It helps to really reduce inflammation. So just going from one session before and after, people's ability just to walk with increased confidence and smoothness, it was really impressive. So that's a really nice additive to the program that we'd like to see even more people take advantage of.
Well, from a participant's standpoint and participating in the last 5 years, I just want to thank both of you because you've really, whether you realize it or not, talking to people sitting out in class, the impact you've had on their lives and the change you've had on their lives. I mean, a lot of times you might not think about that, but people will say that they don't know where they would be if they weren't participating in Momentum. So I think it's a testament to program, but I think maybe a lot of times the instructors don't hear that. Maybe you don't see the impact you've had on people's lives, but when you talk to them and they share their stories, it's great to see that they're happy again and they're not isolating and they found new friends and new family. So, I mean, it's a great program and I highly recommend it. So, I'd love to see it expand to other facilities as well because there's so many people out there that could benefit from the program. So, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to leave with?
I think if anybody's interested in learning more about it, especially as we start to develop the ability to bring it to new locations, feel free to reach out to us. I'm sure Chris will include our contact information in the podcast notes. Or if anybody just needs some more information about any of the different techniques or exercises that we include, we're happy to talk to anybody about the program itself.
And to follow up on that, there is so much information that we gather week to week, month to month. So just like Susanna said, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're definitely passionate about this program and how it's going to grow moving forward.
Great. Well, I want to thank both of you for being here and participating in the program. And just to finish up, that if you would be kind enough to visit the website liveparkinsons.com for the free monthly newsletter. It's got a lot of information on new products, and we also have a focus area this month that's going to be on social interaction. And I also include in there webinars and seminars that people can listen to. And then original podcast was on the 4 strategies I've used to help live an exceptional life with Parkinson's. And if you're interested, there's a book on Amazon. It's called Spectacular Life, 4 Strategies for Living with Parkinson's Disease, My Journey to Happiness. But I want to thank everybody for listening, and we hope to have you listen on future podcasts. Thanks.